Alright YouTube, so we're back with some Final Fantasy XVI content. We have a bit of an update for 16 and the possibility that it's going to come out a lot sooner than everybody thinks. This info comes to us from Jason Schreier, who recently did a podcast with Triple Click. Now, I'm not listening to the podcast myself, mainly because it's an hour long. And during the podcast, he says, I've heard from people who know the game, have worked on the game, or are familiar with the game's development, that it's actually been in development for at least 4 years in some capacity. So it's coming sooner than people think. He also further goes on to say, 15, I think, really set a terrible precedent. It was announced as Versus 13 in 2006, and then took 10 years to make. So I think they want to shy away from that. It makes sense. 15 came out in 2016, so it's already been 4 years since the last Final Fantasy game. Now, of course, he's talking about the numbered entries when he says it's been 4 years, but Remake is a release that was on par with a regular numbered entry. It's another massive Final Fantasy game, so it hasn't really been that long, but I get what he means. But what he says during this podcast makes a lot of sense, and actually Remake itself is a good example of this. It was revealed in 2015 and took like 5 years to come out. But despite the 10-year wait for 15, that game came out and had a massive launch. It was very successful. The best launch in the franchise, to be exact. And this is something I could definitely see Square Enix wanting to do. It's one of the things that Bethesda does that I actually like, despite my problems with Bethesda in the last couple of years. When they reveal a game like BGS, when it's like Bethesda Game Studios revealing a game like a new Fallout or an Elder Scrolls, it comes out relatively quickly. We've seen with their last couple of releases with Fallout 4 and Fallout 76. They show it, and they release it within a handful of months. Starfield and Elder Scrolls 6 are different because those were just them revealing that those games were in development. That wasn't like an actual trailer with gameplay and things like that. Those were just teasers to let you know those projects were in the works. And Jason Schreier mentioning that 16's been in development in some capacity over the last 4 years is something I've said in my couple of videos I've done on Final Fantasy 16. Because 15 came out, in 2016, they had to have been working on 16 in some capacity. For at least a couple of years at this point. But I can see Square Enix wanting to go this route, man. Like, let's not reveal a game too early. Like, if we're going to reveal and start talking about a game, let's make sure it's coming out relatively quickly, within a year or two. And something we've actually already seen with Remake. Like, yeah, we waited almost 5 years for Remake to come out, but CyberConnect 2 were the ones developing it initially. Square Enix took development away from them, brought it in-house in 2017. We heard nothing about the game until 2019 State of Play. Once they started to talk about the game at State of Play, the game came out in under a year. That State of Play took place in May of 2019. The game was supposed to come out in March 2020. Obviously got delayed till April 2020, but that still puts the game coming out in under a year once they really started talking about it. Like, I know we always give Square Enix shit for showing stuff way too early before it's ever even ready, but if you really think about it, putting aside the 4 years or so that we waited, once they really started talking about Remake in 2019, the game did come out in under a year, so it's something we've already seen them doing. And if you look at this first trailer we got for Final Fantasy XVI, for one, it's a massive trailer versus like the State of Play trailer we got for Remake was only like a minute. This is like a 4-minute trailer. It's got beautiful cinematics, a lot of story elements. It's also got gameplay, so it definitely seems like 16 is pretty far along. I know I did a video talking about will Remake Part 2 or Final Fantasy XVI come out first, like which one. We kind of looked at it from both sides, play devil's advocate. But looking at it from this perspective, I do think it's a good chance that 16 is going to come out within a good year or so. Now, I'm not a big fan of Jason Schreier. We talked about a prediction he had earlier this year, I think in June with the first PS5 event or something like that, where he predicted that they were going to show off Remake Part 2 and give it a release date of like 2021. But like the first game was out for like 2 months. If you really thought they were going to already show the sequel, you're kind of goddamn stupid. But I do think when it comes to being an insider in the business, he definitely has his sources, so I do think he's pretty credible in that regard. He's certainly more credible than whoever sent Night Sky Prince those emails. So I want to get my thoughts on this really quickly here towards the end of the video, at least as quick as I can. I didn't get a chance to watch his video about the emails and look at the rumor, and I don't even know what the rumor is entirely about, but I did have somebody comment on my video about it. And the gist of what I know based on this rumor is that Part 2 is supposed to be the final game for the Remake project, which is something we've actually talked about before based on like an analyst like prediction or something like that. They can't afford to make more than 2 games, so Part 2 is going to be the finale. That is something we've talked about before. The other thing I was told about this rumor that really stood out to me was that Square Enix wasn't satisfied with the sales of Remake, which is why that was a blatant red flag to me. I knew that the rumor was fake based on that alone, simply because we've talked about the financial reports of Square Enix for the last like year or more, something like that, year and a half, something along those lines. And they did a financial report sometime after the launch of the game, and they were overwhelmingly satisfied with the sales, especially because most of them were digital. They make a lot more money off of digital sales. And Remake had like the biggest like launch ever for PS4, or like a PS4 exclusive, or something along those lines. Like the game did very, very well. So the rumor claiming that Square Enix wasn't satisfied with the sales of Remake was enough for me to never watch this video or look into the rumor in any capacity. Now, to be clear, there's nothing wrong with him reporting on rumors. We do it all the time here on the channel as well. But people were claiming that he was trying to pass it off as legitimate. I don't know. Never watched the video. But if you hop on like Reddit, you can see people kind of trashing him for the way he did the video. And there's even somebody that uploaded a clip from Maximilian Dude, like live streaming on Twitch for Tokyo Game Show. And it's a long like discussion, like 8-minute discussion of him talking about the video itself. He never names Night Sky Prince, but he talks about it for a while, and he's kind of hating as well. So seeing kind of the general reception to the video on Reddit and seeing Max go on this tangent for like 8 minutes talking about it, I'm assuming that the video was kind of done in a way that was off-putting to people, whatever that might have been. Now, since all this happened, he did make a community post on YouTube kind of explaining the situation about it bringing negative attention to him, negatively impacting his mental health, and he eventually took the video down, which is the part I wanted to focus on, and it's the part I disagree with. Like, I'm not sure if he's a younger guy or something like that, but to put out a video that gets some negative attention and, like, it affects your mental health, and you gotta delete the video, and you gotta put out this massive apology, it's like, I don't know if you're cut out for something like content creation. You gotta be able to take some critical feedback, some negative feedback. Not everybody's gonna agree with the things that you say or like the content that you put out, and for you to delete the video because of the negative attention, it gives those people that kind of power over you, and they're probably just gonna do it more in the future. Just using myself as an example, I've had my fair share of hate in the past. You know, go back a couple years on my channel, we used to put out some edgy content that was polarizing to say the least, and it wasn't always well received, but those videos are still up, and they'll always be up unless YouTube themselves takes them down. Even more recently here on the channel when it comes to like Remake and talking about, you know, the ending of part 1 and whether or not Zack is or isn't alive, or whether or not there is or isn't multiple timelines, like I've voiced my thoughts and opinion on that. I've got a lot of hate for it. The videos are, you know, the like ratio is good on the videos, but the comments are a lot of people disagreeing, calling me stupid and all this other shit. The videos are still up though, man. I suppose people handle things differently, but I just think as a fellow content creator here on YouTube that it was a bad call to delete the video. Kind of went off on a tangent there, but I just kind of wanted to voice my thoughts on that because I wanted to watch this video and kind of discuss it and the rumor, but I never got around to that and the video was initially taken down, so this is kind of the only opportunity I'm ever going to have to talk about it. But kind of back on topic here with the first part of the video, according to Jason Schreier and an inside source that he has, Final Fantasy XVI is a lot closer than we think. So I want to pass off to you guys, of course, and you can give your thoughts on whichever thing that we talked about. Like, I know me and Night Sky Prince have some crossover when it comes to viewers. Was the video done in a way that deserved any of the hate that he got? Because I didn't get to watch it. And when it comes to Final Fantasy XVI with this trailer and using like Remake as a comparison last year, do you think that the game is a lot further along than everybody realizes and it's going to come out relatively soon? Either way, my dudes, that is the video. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. We'll update more Final Fantasy XVI content. Turn on my notifications. Follow me on Twitter at @dashingdavid. I'm on Discord. Links to my social networks are in the description and in the outro. Later, guys.
Used to care what people thought, but now I care more, and nobody out here's got it figured out. So therefore, I've lost all hope of a happy ending, depending on whether or not it's worth it. So insecure, no one's perfect. We spend it with no shame. We blow that like Coltrane. We in here like Rogaine, or leave it like Cobain.